Okay, so let's unpack this. You're looking into India's Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao program,
Mhm.
which translates to save the girl child, educate the girl child.
Right.
And, it's a fascinating initiative.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, tackling something as complex as a cultural preference with a government program.
Yeah, it's certainly ambitious,
Right.
especially when you consider that this bias is so deeply rooted in Indian society.
Absolutely. And we've got your research here. Deep dive into whether this program actually works.
Yeah.
And it all starts with understanding the problem. The source material points out India's declining sex ratio at birth.
Yes, the SRB, as it's called. That's right. It's a key indicator.
Yeah.
And the article highlights a truly disturbing reality with that quote
Oh, yeah.
about spending 500 rupees on an abortion
Right.
to save 500,000 rupees on a potential dowry.
Yeah, that really struck me, too.
It
Paints such a stark picture of the economic factors
Yeah.
driving this bias against daughters.
It certainly underscores the challenges Beti Padhao,
Right.
BBBP as we'll call it,
Okay, yeah.
is up against.
So our mission today is to figure out, is this program making a difference?
Okay.
We're analyzing data from 2015 to 2017
Right.
to see if throwing money at the problem is actually effective.
Yeah.
Or if something more fundamental is needed.
Right. Let's dig into that data and see what it reveals
Okay.
about the program's impact.
On the surface, the BBBP seems like a great idea.
Yeah.
Awareness campaigns, education initiatives, tackling those deep-seated cultural beliefs.
Yeah, it seems to check all the boxes.
Right.
And it builds upon earlier efforts like the 1994 PCPNDT Act,
Right.
which bans the use of ultrasound for sex determination.
Makes sense if you don't know the sex
Right.
of the fetus, you can't select for a boy.
Mm.
But was that enough?
Unfortunately, it's not that simple.
Okay.
While the PCPNDT Act was crucial, it mainly addressed the method without changing the motivation. People might simply seek out these services through unregulated channels.
So it tries the practice underground.
Exactly. That's why the focus of the BBBP on shifting cultural mindsets is so crucial.
Okay, so did it work?
Well,
The research that you provided compared BBBP funding to the actual SRB in different regions, and this is where it gets interesting. The correlation is negative. More money, lower SRB.
yeah.
How do we make sense of that?
That's where understanding the details of the program is important.
Okay.
It seems counterintuitive, but more funding was allocated to regions that already had a lower SRB.
Okay.
Think of it like focusing resources on the most severe problems first.
So it's not that the money's making things worse, it's about where it's being directed.
Precisely, the study highlights a geographic divide
Yeah.
between the North and West, with lower SRBs
Okay.
receiving more funding compared to the South and East. And this is where cultural linguistics comes in.
Interesting.
Regions where Indo-Aryan languages are dominant tend to have a stronger son preference
Okay.
compared to regions where Dravidian languages are spoken.
Could you elaborate a bit on that connection
So-
between language families and attitudes towards daughters?
Well, it's a complex area, but research suggests there are differences in family structures and social organization
Okay.
between these language families.
Okay.
In Indo-Aryan cultures, the patriarchal lineage and inheritance systems are often more rigid,
Okay.
leading to a heightened preference for sons.
Okay.
Dravidian cultures, on the other hand, tend to have more flexible family structures and greater female participation in social and economic spheres.
So the funding disparity reflects deeply entrenched cultural patterns across different parts of India.
Exactly.
We're not just looking at a random distribution of funds.
Right.
It's tied to these complex historical and linguistic factors.
Exactly. It highlights the challenges in approaching a multifaceted issue like this with a uniform solution.
Okay, so the distribution of funds makes sense given the context. But here's a real head-scratcher. The data shows only 39.55%
Wow.
of the BBBP funds were actually used. What's going on there?
That's a significant amount of unused resources.
Yeah.
And it raises important questions about implementation and efficiency.
Right.
It suggests the problem isn't solely the amount of funding, but how effectively it's being utilized on the ground.
Does that affect the correlation we talked about between funding and SRB?
It does.
Well, what happens when we only look at the money that was actually put to use?
That's an excellent question, and the analysis shows that the negative correlation weakens
Okay.
when accounting for fund utilization.
Right.
This means that money alone isn't the solution.
Right.
It's about how that money is implemented and translated into real change.
And here's another fascinating tidbit. Nearly 80% of the funds that were spent went toward media campaigns.
Okay.
Lots of ads, slogans, jingles. Is that truly the most effective way
Mm.
to tackle a cultural issue, this complex bad?
It does raise questions about the allocation of resources.
Yeah.
Were those campaigns truly effective in changing hearts and minds?
Right.
Or did they primarily focus on visibility rather than impactful change?
Yeah.
This is where a deeper analysis of the content and reach of
Mhm.
those campaigns would be beneficial.
We'll have to dig into that more.
Okay.
Now, this is where the data gets really intriguing.
Okay.
The researchers mapped out which regions used their funds most effectively. And guess what the South, with its generally higher SRB,
Interesting.
also demonstrates better utilization of BBBP funds.
Okay.
Do you think that's a coincidence?
I think it points to something really important. The South, which tends to be more progressive in its attitudes towards daughters,
Right.
is also more efficient in implementing programs focused on gender equality.
Right.
This reinforces the idea that cultural context plays a significant role in the success of such initiatives.
And to really drive that point home, the research includes a box plot comparing utilization rates across different regions. The variation is striking.
Oh, wow.
You've got high performers like Jerkhand hitting 100% utilization in 2016,
Right.
and then others lagging far behind.
It's a clear visual representation of the program's uneven implementation,
Yeah.
highlighting the need for a more nuanced approach.
Right.
Perhaps instead of a fixed funding model, a more dynamic system could be beneficial, something like a challenge-based approach.
Challenge-based funding. Could you explain how that would work?
Imagine a system where regions compete for funds by demonstrating how they plan to use the money
Okay.
to create tangible and impactful change.
Okay.
Instead of simply allocating funds based on preset criteria,
Okay.
it encourages innovation and accountability.
So regions would have to propose solutions tailored to their specific challenges
Exactly.
and demonstrate how they'll measure success.
Exactly. It promotes a more data-driven approach where progress is continuously tracked
Okay.
and adjustments are made based on real-world outcomes.
That sounds promising. So where does the BBBP stand now?
Oh.
Is this challenge-based model being considered?
Well, the program has been incorporated into a larger initiative called Mission Shakti,
Okay.
which focuses broadly on women's empowerment and safety.
So it's not just about saving baby girls, but empowering women throughout their lives.
That's right. And what's really exciting is the emphasis on data science. In evaluating these large-scale programs, it's about using data to understand what works and what doesn't,
Yeah.
and continuously refining the approach.
Just like we've been saying all along, throwing money at a problem isn't enough.
Yeah,
You need targeted strategies,
exactly.
informed by data and adapted to the specific cultural context.
Absolutely. Data science is becoming a powerful tool in the fight for gender equality.
It's fascinating how data can help us move beyond like those broad stroke solutions and really tailor interventions to specific needs.
Right.
Remember that map we discussed earlier
Yes.
showing how differently regions use their funding?
Yes, the variations in fund utilization across India are a gold mine of information.
Right.
They're not just interesting observations, but valuable insights
Uh-huh.
that can drive action.
Right.
Let's say you're working on Mission Shakti
Okay.
and you see one state consistently underperforming in fund utilization.
That's a red flag, right?
Yeah.
But instead of just scratching their heads,
Exactly.
they can use data to figure out why.
Precisely. They can zoom in and analyze what's happening in those specific districts.
Right.
Maybe there's a lack of awareness about available funds,
Cool.
or a bottleneck in the application process data helps pinpoint the obstacles,
Uh-huh.
and then solutions can be tailored to those specific problems.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, you get a custom-fit solution for each region that's so much more effective.
It's about precision and efficiency.
Right.
Data allows you to make the most impact with the resources available.
And it makes sense.
Another example is using data to track the effectiveness of different awareness campaigns.
Oh,
We were just discussing that 80% figure for media spending.
yeah, I'm still a little skeptical about jingles as a tool for social change.
Well, data can help us move beyond gut feelings
Okay.
by analyzing things like reach engagement and message recall.
Uh-huh.
We can understand which campaigns actually resonate with people.
So instead of just pouring more money into a campaign that's falling flat,
Right.
they can adjust their strategy based on real data. That's a game changer.
Absolutely. It's about learning from what works
Right.
and constantly optimizing the approach.
Okay.
But I know you're thinking about the cultural side of things.
Yes.
We've talked about how deeply ingrained these beliefs are.
Right. It's not like changing a brand of toothpaste.
Exactly.
We're talking about cultural shifts that take generations.
Yeah.
Can data really capture something as nuanced as deeply held beliefs?
It's a great question, and data isn't a magic bullet.
Right.
It can't single-handedly change hearts and minds,
Right.
but it can provide valuable insights into those cultural nuances.
Okay, so how do you go about gathering that kind of data? It seems like it would require more than just numbers and statistics.
Exactly. You need to go beyond the what and delve into the why.
Okay.
Think qualitative research surveys that explore attitudes and beliefs, focus groups where people share their personal experiences,
Okay.
even analyzing social media trends to see what conversations are happening organically.
So you're trying to understand the language people use,
Mm-hmm.
the stories they tell, the values that shape their views.
Precisely. And this data can help us understand the underlying reasons behind gender bias.
Okay.
For example, data might reveal that in certain communities, daughters are seen as a greater financial burden
Right.
because of dowry practices.
Yeah.
It brings us back to that sobering quote about the cost of an abortion versus a dowry.
Wow. So it's like data can help bridge the gap between these large-scale programs
Yes.
and the individual lives they're meant to impact.
That's the goal. It's about moving beyond broad strokes and really addressing the specific needs and challenges of different communities.
Makes sense.
And ultimately, it's about empowering women with the resources and opportunities they need to thrive.
So we've talked about how data can inform program implementation
Mm-hmm.
and help us understand cultural nuances.
Right.
But how do we actually know if these initiatives are making a difference? How do we measure their impact?
That's where long-term data tracking comes in.
Okay.
We need to look beyond just immediate changes in the sex ratio at birth
Uh-huh.
and track things like girls' school enrollment rates,
Okay.
their health outcomes, even their representation in higher education and the workforce.
So it's about painting a fuller picture of what it means to truly empower girls and women.
Yes.
Not just looking at one narrow indicator, but looking at their lives as a whole.
Exactly. Measuring progress across multiple dimensions allows us to identify trends
Right.
and evaluate the effectiveness of different interventions.
Right.
This long-term data helps us course correct and make sure we're on the right track.
This is starting to feel very hopeful. It's like data, when used strategically,
Yes.
can become a powerful ally in the fight for gender equality.
Absolutely. It's a tool. And like any tool, its effectiveness depends on how it's used.
Right.
But in the right hands, data has incredible potential to drive real and lasting change.
All of this sounds amazing, but I'm curious about the practicalities.
Okay.
Who's responsible for gathering and analyzing all this data?
It's a collaborative effort.
Okay.
Government agencies play a key role in collecting and disseminating data, but they often partner with research institutions, NGOs,
Okay.
even private sector organizations with expertise in data science.
So it's a multi-pronged approach,
Yeah.
bringing together different areas of expertise.
Exactly. It's not just about crunching numbers.
Right.
It's about translating those insights into actionable plans.
Right.
That's where collaboration between policymakers, program implementers,
Yeah.
and data analysts becomes so crucial.
It sounds like a well-oiled machine, but I imagine there are challenges in getting all these different players to work together seamlessly.
Of course, data sharing can be a hurdle,
Right.
especially when you're dealing with sensitive information like gender and demographics.
Yeah.
There are also concerns about data privacy
Mm-hmm.
and making sure the data is used ethically and responsibly.
Those are definitely important considerations. So how do they navigate those challenges?
It requires building trust and transparency between different stakeholders.
Okay.
Developing clear ethical guidelines for data collection, analysis, and sharing is also essential.
Right.
We need to be vigilant in safeguarding responsible use of this powerful tool.
It's encouraging to know that there are people actively working to ensure data is used ethically and effectively to achieve gender equality.
It's an ongoing process, but the potential is immense.
Yeah.
Data can illuminate inequalities, help us find effective solutions, and ultimately create a more just and equitable world for girls and women.
Okay, so we've seen how data can be used to refine program implementation, understand cultural nuances, measure impact, and even navigate ethical considerations.
Right.
What else is happening at the intersection of data and gender equality? Are there any other exciting developments you can share?
Well, one really exciting area is the use of predictive analytics. We
Okay.
talked about challenge-based funding earlier, where regions compete for funds
Right.
based on their proposed solutions.
Yeah, the idea of regions pitching their best ideas to tackle this issue really stood out.
Now imagine using data to predict which interventions are most likely to succeed in specific contexts.
Okay.
It's like taking everything we've learned about regional variations, cultural factors,
Mm-hmm.
and program effectiveness and using it to make smarter funding decisions.
So instead of just reacting to problems, you could proactively invest in the solutions that are likely to have the biggest impact.
Exactly. Predictive analytics can help us be more strategic and forward-thinking in our approach to gender equality.
Okay.
We can identify high-potential areas for intervention and channel resources to where they'll make the most difference.
So data can help us get ahead of the curve and prevent problems before they even arise. That's incredible.
In some cases, yes. For example, if data shows a correlation between certain socioeconomic factors and a higher risk of girls dropping out of school, you can target interventions to those communities before the problem escalates.
It's like using data to create a safety net for these girls, making sure they have the support they need to succeed.
It's a great way to put it. It's not just about preventing negative outcomes, but proactively creating opportunities for girls to thrive.
So data can help us move from a reactive to a proactive approach, addressing root causes and creating a more equitable future for girls.
That's the power of data.
Yeah.
It gives us the insights and tools to be more effective, more efficient, and ultimately more impactful in our efforts to achieve gender equality.
This is really inspiring.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see how data can be harnessed to tackle these complex social challenges.
It's truly remarkable. And remember, we've just scratched the surface here. As data science continues to evolve, its potential to drive positive social change will only grow.
We've covered so much ground today, from data's role in fine-tuning program implementation to the exciting possibilities of predictive analytics. I think it's time to take a breath and process all this incredible information. When we come back, we'll wrap things up and leave you with some final thoughts. All right, we're back, and I have to say the potential of data science to drive positive change is truly remarkable. It's given me a whole new perspective on how we can approach these complex social issues,
Yeah.
like gender equality.
It is exciting, isn't it? We've only just begun to explore the possibilities, and there's so much more to discover as data science continues to evolve.
Let's bring it back to our deep dive mission.
Okay.
We started by asking, does investing in India's gender equality programs actually work? What's the verdict based on your research?
Yeah. Well, like most social issues deeply rooted in cultural norms, there's no easy answer. Money alone is clearly not enough. The Beti Padhao program has had a mixed impact, and the data reveals challenges with implementation and regional variations.
But it's not a complete failure either, right? We've seen how data can help us fine-tune the program, target resources more strategically, and understand those cultural nuances at play.
Absolutely. And the fact that it's now part of the broader Mission Shakti initiative with an emphasis on data-driven decision-making is a promising step forward.
That brings us to a question for you, our listener. If you were designing a challenge-based funding model for Mission Shakti, what would you prioritize? What would it take to really make a difference in achieving gender equality in India?
That's a fantastic question to consider. It would definitely require a multifaceted approach addressing both immediate needs and long-term systemic change.
What kind of initiatives come to mind?
Well, I'd certainly prioritize programs that empower women economically. Access to education, vocational training, and financial resources are key to enabling women to build independent lives.
So it's about going beyond just preventing early marriage or ensuring girls are born. It's about giving them the tools to shape their own destinies.
Precisely, and challenging those deeply ingrained social norms that limit women's opportunities is crucial. Perhaps funding could be directed towards communities that demonstrate concrete steps towards dismantling the dowry system or promoting women's leadership roles.
I love that idea. And what about those cultural differences we've been discussing? How would you factor those into a challenge-based funding model?
That's where the power of data really shines. We need to understand the specific challenges and beliefs prevalent in different regions and tailor interventions accordingly. One community might need programs addressing the economic burden associated with daughters, while another might need to focus on shifting patriarchal attitudes within families.
It's fascinating how data allows us to move away from those cookie-cutter solutions and really create programs that are relevant and effective for each community.
Absolutely. And beyond measuring outcomes, data can be used to listen to the voices of women themselves. What are their aspirations? What barriers do they face? Their insights are invaluable in designing truly impactful initiatives.
It's about making women active participants in shaping the solutions, not just passive recipients of aid.
Exactly. True, empowerment comes from within, and any successful initiative needs to recognize and amplify the agency of women.
Wow, this deep dive has been so insightful. We've gone from unpacking the basics of Beti Bachao, Padhao, to exploring this complex landscape of gender equality in India and the incredible potential of data-driven solutions.
And remember, this is just a glimpse into a much larger conversation. Countless organizations, researchers, and individuals are working tirelessly to advance gender equality around the world.
So to you, our listener, we encourage you to keep exploring this topic. Perhaps delve deeper into the regions we discussed or research innovative initiatives using data in creative ways to promote gender equality.
There's a wealth of knowledge out there. And as we've seen today, data can be a powerful tool for understanding and hopefully changing the world for the better.
That's it for our deep dive today. Until next time, stay curious and keep asking those tough questions.